It looks like the Circuit of the Americas is about to host one of the most unexpected returns in recent F1 memory. The spotlight, Daniel Ricciardo. Amidst rumours and fan speculation, whispers from the paddock suggest Red Bull might be backed into a corner with no option but to bring Ricciardo back into the mix. The excitement is electric, and COTA is gearing up for a potential Ricciardo spectacle. Could the charismatic Aussie be orchestrating a jaw-dropping return, one that promises to turn the US races into a Ricciardo festival? It's the kind of shock that F1 fans live for, and it seems like Austin is ready to embrace every bit of it. Daniel Ricciardo never got the grand farewell he deserved in Formula One. Just 4 days after the race in Singapore, Red Bull dropped a bombshell. Ricciardo was out, and Liam Lawson would take his seat for the final 6 races of the year. It was a decision that blindsided many, not least Ricciardo himself, who had no clue about the brewing storm while he was busy with media duties ahead of the race weekend. Red Bull's handling of the situation drew heavy criticism, with fans and pundits alike questioning their approach. The whole episode left Ricciardo looking stunned, as if he'd been taken out in the first corner. Dr. Helmut Marko later admitted that Ricciardo got the news on Sunday morning, and his change in demeanour was visible almost immediately. The timing was influenced by various factors and commitments, Marko explained, adding with an odd touch of irony, "His farewell was, I think, marked by that fastest lap. It wasn't the parting Ricciardo or his fans had hoped for." In true Formula One fashion, this story was full of sharp turns and abrupt endings. Daniel Ricciardo's 8 Grand Prix victories were no walk in the park, considering he never had the luxury of driving the best car on the grid. Compare that to Valtteri Bottas, who racked up 10 wins with Mercedes, all during seasons when the Silver Arrows dominated the Constructors' Championship. It's like Ricciardo was racing uphill while Bottas cruised on a straight. If that wasn't enough of a slap in the face, Christian Horner, after announcing Ricciardo's abrupt exit from Red Bull, suggested on the Beyond the Grid podcast that Alpine should consider signing the Australian. "Honestly, if I were in their shoes, I'd go with Ricciardo," Horner stated. They've known him from his stint a couple of seasons back, where he was consistently delivering podiums. "I think he's the kind of guy you could rebuild." Horner was referencing Ricciardo's decision to leave Red Bull at the end of 2018 to join Renault, then a full factory team. The move has often been called into question, with Horner himself wondering if Ricciardo made the right call. Even Dr. Helmut Marko chimed in, hinting that perhaps Ricciardo lacked the resolve to go toe-to-toe with Max Verstappen. "It's as if they think he dodged the battle rather than gearing up for it. It's clearly not been the best time for him at McLaren for whatever reason," Horner remarked, touching on Ricciardo's recent struggles. "But think back to some of the drives he had with us. The wins, the podiums, those jaw-dropping overtakes. That skill is still there, he just needs a bit of a reset." It's almost like Horner is saying Ricciardo's racing spark just needs reigniting. There's a theory floating around that older drivers, with Alonso being the glaring exception, don't adjust well to major shifts in F1 car designs. Take Sebastian Vettel, for example. Fresh off 4 consecutive championships, he suddenly found himself teammates with Ricciardo in 2014, just as the new hybrid era began. Back then, the Red Bull-Renault combo wasn't at its best, struggling to keep up with the new regulations. Yet, Ricciardo outperformed Vettel, clinching 3 wins to Vettel's 0 that season. That was the moment when Vettel packed his bags for Ferrari, but he never quite recaptured the magic of his dominant 2010-14 run. It's as if that era change threw a wrench into the gears of his racing prowess. Lewis Hamilton has also had his fair share of struggles since the introduction of the ground effect cars in 2022. Once the king of single-lap pace, he's been consistently out-qualified by his teammate George Russell, with a current qualifying score of 13-5 this season. Though Hamilton leads Russell in the Drivers' Championship by 19 points, it's worth noting that this margin includes a 32-point boost after Russell's disqualification in Belgium for an underweight car. It's been a rollercoaster ride for Hamilton, a far cry from his past dominance. Ricciardo seems to have fallen into a similar trap. After a relatively successful stint at Renault, his move to McLaren quickly turned sour when the new ground effect regulations came into play. In 2022, he was left trailing far behind his teammate, Lando Norris, a shadow of the driver he once was. Christian Horner has pointed to this theory of older drivers struggling to adapt, adding weight to the idea. Speaking on the F1 Nation podcast, he explained, "When you get to Formula One, you're bombarded with data. How hard you brake, where you brake, your style, positioning, the energy through the tyres. All of that gets dissected. It's almost as if these new ground effect cars have created a whole new puzzle for the experienced drivers. They aren't just battling other cars, they're fighting against years of ingrained driving instincts." Horner recalls how Ricciardo adapted very quickly when he he first joined Red Bull alongside Vettel. Maybe it's because they're not bogged down by preconceptions about how a car should feel. They just adapt and drive it fast, he explained. Back in 2014, the team had transitioned from the V8s to V6s, creating a car with a completely different character. Gone were the days of exhaust blowing, leaving the car a bit more jittery on entry. Yet, Ricciardo took it in stride and thrived. But putting aside the analysis of Ricciardo's split from Red Bull, there's no denying his star power, especially in the USA. The American fans have a special place in their hearts for the Honey Badger, and if the US GP promoter gets his wish, Ricciardo will be back in Austin, Texas, in just 2 weeks, where he'll likely steal the spotlight. Daniel could make just as big an impact off the track as he does on it, said Bobby Epstein, the US GP promoter. I'm not sure people are buying tickets to see him race if he's not in a competitive car, right? But if they're coming because he's part of the F1 community, he can still contribute in a significant way. He's truly loved here in Texas, and I think he enjoys being here too. Ricciardo's love for American culture is no secret. He took it to the next level during the 2022 US Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas. With his signature flair, he rode into the pit lane on horseback, donning a Stars and Stripes jacket and a Stetson hat, while country singer Rob Baird performed Dreams and Gasoline. It was a moment straight out of a western, fitting for the Aussie who's captured the hearts of Texas. I hope he makes himself more available to the fans now that he's free from the commitments of racing, Epstein remarked, emphasizing the buzz surrounding Ricciardo's potential appearance. There are so many people here eager to meet him, snag a photo, grab an autograph, or simply spot him around town. If he decides to show up, we'll make sure he's got a full schedule. Epstein's words capture the genuine admiration and excitement fans in the US feel for Ricciardo, even when he's not in the cockpit. David Coulthard also chimed in, suggesting that Ricciardo had a chance to say his farewells back in Singapore but, for some reason, opted out. The Channel 4 presenter speculated that maybe Ricciardo wanted to avoid distractions, or perhaps he was setting up a media masterstroke in true Ricciardo style. Turning up in Austin and Vegas will generate even more buzz, Coulthard noted. He's huge in America, and those two races are prime opportunities for him to steal the limelight. The timing couldn't be better. With 2 consecutive races in the US, Ricciardo has a golden opportunity to make the event all about him. In Singapore, his farewell would have just blended into the race weekend, but Austin, that's where he can truly shine. By the time the US Grand Prix kicks off, Ricciardo will have had 3 weeks to come to terms with his departure from Red Bull. If he's looking for a proper send-off, Texas is the place to do it. The fans there love his easygoing, fun-loving attitude, and you can bet they'd rally behind him to give him the farewell he truly deserves. If Ricciardo makes a surprise return in Austin, could it pave the way for a future move to Alpine, or even a potential seat with Audi? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, goodbye for now.